What's up Saab fans around the world, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to do a pretty special one because the Aero 95 NGs have a little bit of a special chassis setup. So in the front we got the Hyper struts, which is a special made GM idea, and it's quite unique. So the wheel is not pivoting around the strut, it's rather pivoting around an outer shell, or what you should call it. I'm gonna show you later, but this is pretty special and unique, and there are no coilovers whatsoever for this setup. So the only way is to manufacture your own. So that's what we are going to do today. So we're gonna build some custom coilovers to make this car real low. Maybe not real low, but low enough. We are aiming for a nice fitment at least. But here you can see the front strut, and normally the wheel turns around this one, but here it's a little bit backwards mounted. So the pivoting point is out here. So the wheel is turning around this little point right here, and this is standing pretty much still. So that's pretty nice, because when you are installing coilovers, one of the most common problems people run into is that they get a knocking sound, and that is when the coil is fully compressed and you're turning the wheel and the coil doesn't spin at its point, so it jumps a little bit, and when the coils are pressed together you get a metallic clonking sound, which is really common. But here we have some TA Technics coilovers, and these are for Insignia, but they are not for the Hyperstrut model. So this is what we are starting with. So these coilovers has the original mounting points, which are going to be removed. I have started a little bit and did the first one. So here you can see the original strut, and here you can see the one that I have made. So I'm gonna take you through the process. So we have a little bit of custom work done here. This is from a machine shop. You know who you are who did this. Thank you a lot. So this needs to be the exact measurements to fit where it should sit. We have a special made washer in the top mount, so it doesn't push through. It's mounted right here. So it's a little bit of special tips and tricks along the way, so if you're interested you should stay tuned. So we're gonna start with the most boring thing, and that is disassembling the original strut. So we're gonna remove this nut here to the drive shaft. We're also gonna take away the caliper. Then we're gonna remove this bolt that sits behind here, and then there's one going through down here. And when they are out of the way, you should remove this as well. But on the other side where I tried, it was stuck like I don't know what. So I just let that sit. It's not the best way, but it works. So this disassembling might look a little bit sloppy, but we will try to do the best. The main goal is to get out the old one and in with the new one. Then how you do it doesn't matter so much as long as it gets correct in the end. So let's start disassembling. the Insignia OEM strut. So what we are going to do now is disassemble everything, pick everything off. So you remove the top nut, remove the spring, lay it to the side, remove this cover, remove the bump stop, and we have this fitting right here, so we need to remove this in order to remove the shock, because we are going to cut into this and weld into this, so we don't want this in here, because if you weld into this with this in here and the heat get transferred into the gas shock, then you will have an explosion and it will be the end of your life, so don't do it. So here we need to protect the shaft, because if this gets scratched, the scratch will damage the seal and the shock will start to leak. So you need to protect the shaft. Nothing too crazy, just a couple of laps with the electrical tape. Then we use the good old homemade tool, because this is a bit of a hassle. Like so, and then we're gonna knock it down so we really get a good grip, because as I said, this sits so goddamn hard. I don't know why they have Loctite it so hard, but it is, and it's a bit of a hassle to get it loose. Like so. Now we got an empty shell and it's perfectly fine to weld into it and cut into it. So now we're gonna delete these right here, these little tabs on the side, and one of these. Just make sure you copy the other strut, the original one, so you delete the correct one. Now everything is grinded down and it's just basically a pipe with the threads and the adjustment nuts and the bolt for the, I can't find the word for it right now, but it's there. So I got this special made because this is thinner than the outer shell on the original strut. So the outer diameter on the original struts is 55 millimeters, which this is on the outside, and this is 51 millimeters in diameter, which is the inside. So this slides on just perfect, a little bit tight as it should be, perfect fitment. So now we're gonna measure this in so we get the same measurement as we had on the other one, so they sit at the same height. Then we're gonna weld this in. So this will be the attachment for the strut, and also we're gonna weld some right here, just a thin line, and that is to avoid the strut to spinning in the clamp on the car. So you can see right here on the original strut, there's like a little guiding pin right there to make sure it doesn't spin while you drive. So we're gonna copy that, and I left a little edge right here, and that is because when the car is pushing down, I don't want the strut to fall through. So there's an edge around all the way, which is not on the original strut. There's just this bracket on the rear where I showed you. So this will be even a little bit better than the original. So let's start to weld, and then we could assemble everything back with the shock and the spring and the top mount and everything. So next up, it's time to modify the spring a little bit at the top, because here we have the top bearing, the top mount, and it doesn't fit inside of the spring or the coil. So the first time I did this, I mounted it just like this, so it was riding on the bottom. What happened when I start to drive the car, the spring just pushed up the bearing, or like the socket that's inside here. So there was nothing holding it against. So what you need to do is cut up the spring a little bit so it lays in the outside of this groove right here, so it could spin. I'm also gonna remove this and grease it up so it spins really easy, like so. Just grease up this area right here. So it spins real easy, and when it gets pressure on it, it will just spin as good. So now we need to cut the spring a little bit. It's not much, it's just to make like the diameter and the hole a little bit bigger. So we're gonna cut half of the top coil, and we're gonna cut it a little bit of an angle. So now it's time to reassemble everything. So we start with the shock. Then we reassemble the plastic, then the bump stop, then the cover, then the spring, and the top mount. Now here comes the tricky part. Since it's laying so tight against the top bearing, to make it hold underneath so it doesn't push and shoot through, I made this special washer. So this is the original washer that should go on top here, but I have made it a little bit wider so nothing will push through. So this is a 4mm thick aluminum plate. So when I lay this washer in, you can see that it lines up pretty good. So put this on top, then the top nut, make sure that it's tight and fully seated. Like so, and there we have it, the coilover strut. So now it's just to install it back in the car. So the front setup is done and dialed in on both sides, and got a little bit of extra rust protection as well, so they will last for a while. So now it's time to do the rear, and here it's not much of a modification that's needed. You need to undo the shock, and the coilover shock from the Insignia will fit bolt on. For the spring we need to make a plate right here to fill in the hole, and then weld in like a piece of pipe that holds the spring in place, and the adjuster will be placed on top, and that will bolt straight on. So we will just undo the nut down here and release the shock. Then when we will be able, and this bolt right here, then we will be able to lower the arm and remove the spring, install the new spring, and then the new shocks. So this plate is just welded in very lightly in the edges, because all the pressure will be down, so it won't go anywhere. So the welds is just to keep it in place, and the little piping is to center the spring so it won't slide away. So now everything is just to install in the reversed order. For the rear shock, they bolt in the same way at the bottom, but at the top you need to transfer this, and this is what it usually looks like. So to have an impact gun is like a must to get this loose. So now both the rear and the front coilover setup is done, and I hope I got the ride height somewhat correct. It's a lot of guessing at this stage. So now we're gonna put on the wheels and see how this looks, which will be really exciting. And the rims, I have waxed them, and I have put on some tear shine ceramic coating, and as you can see I got the proper emblem, because they used to look like this. So I got these like metal emblems, which are really high quality. I think they are from Spain. I bought them off eBay, and I have them on my other cars as well, and they look super good. It's not like those epoxy emblems that fade over one summer. This is really good stuff. So let's install the wheels and lower the car to the ground and see if we need to adjust something. So this is the moment. I hope it gets a good amount of low, because I'm not really hyped on getting it adjusted, so I hope this will be perfect. Cross fingers. I think this would be awesome to start with, at least. So the floor in here it's not perfectly even, so the car sits a little bit crooked from previous experience. But this is really good to be the first time with no adjustment whatsoever. Could of course be a little bit lower, but as of right now this will just be perfect. And the fitment is on point. Maybe a 5mm spacer wouldn't hurt in the back, and I got that on the shelf, so will not be a big deal to install that. And the front is just on point to have clearance when you turn and so on. It's just perfect as it is right now. So here you can see what I talked about. It's not perfectly even. So on this side it sits a little bit lower, but definitely not too low. I guess when we go out in the garage and I drive it on the road, it will level a little bit, so this side will come up just a little bit, and this side right here will go down just a little bit. So you can see with 21-inch wheels, I think the arches just follows perfect in shape. Damn, I'm so happy and so satisfied with the look of this car. I just need to go and get a quick wash. This is not epic. But damn, this turned out really good. I hope the car handles as good as it looks right now, because the looks are phenomenal. So the spring sits really nice. Can't see much up in there. And the car is now registered, so I actually managed to build the coilovers, get the new wheels, and I have also fully polished the car one time before I got it registered, so it was a little bit of the process, or I'm quick with all the fixing. So there's a lot more coming to this car. We're gonna be doing some more tint to the car, because I don't like this greenish look that are on the factory tint. So we're gonna apply some extra tint both for the rear and the front windows. So this car is actually approved almost until the end of 2022, so almost 2 years from now, which is awesome as well. So let's go for a quick ride and wash off the car, I think. And of course tighten all the bolts or the nuts. I just installed 3 of them just to see how it looked, and it came out super good, so we will install the rest of them before we... that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video a lot. And this coilover build is quite a unicorn build. I have never seen anyone else do it. And I think I'm the only person in the world as of right now that has done a home built setup of this. I know there's one company that had another company build them a setup, but that's not the same thing. Here we are DIY, guys. So this is the recipe to make it work. I have driven the car for a bit and it feels just awesome. The response is perfect. It rides super smooth, even though it's 21-inch wheels. But in the next video I think I will do a review of the car to go through the spec, how it drives and what I think about the car. I know some of you have asked about it. So please subscribe to the channel, it means a lot to me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!